Frank is a gullible and dim-witted lieutenant in the LAPD police squad. He's known for his caffeine addiction and unconventional tactics to solve cases. When he enters the station, his fellow colleagues congratulate him on his 1,000th arrest, but he's called into the supervisor's office. Chief Davis punishes him for his reckless behavior with yesterday's case and makes him in charge of traffic cases until things blow over. The previous day, a gang of criminals took control of a bank. After rounding up the hostages, the leader heads to the safety deposit vault and secures an item called the plot device. The LA SWAT team prepares a perimeter outside when they see a little girl skipping and entering the bank. The robbers are stunned to see her and get ready to subdue her, but she takes off her mask, revealing that it's actually Frank. He takes the robbers down one by one, disarming them and throwing them around. The leader uses the distraction and escapes through the back with the device. After the meeting with the chief, Frank and Ed receive their assignment, a car crash in Malibu. He realizes that it's one of the newest models of an electric car and looks around for evidence. He finds a matchbook with the logo of a silver tiger and takes it into evidence. Ed tells him the victim's name was Simon Davenport and that he has a sister in the area, but no other family. He rules the crash as a suicide for now and heads back to the station. Back at the station, Detective Barnes tells Frank some developments about the previous bank robbery. She lets him know that the robbers told the bank staff that they weren't after any money, intriguing Frank and Ed. He sees someone in his office and greets her. She introduces herself as Simon's sister and that she is positive that his death was not a suicide. She tells him her brother worked for Richard Crane, a genius billionaire. He created the electric car Simon died in and that Frank should question him. He tells her that he'll look into it and warns her not to get involved as she leaves. That night, Frank visits a party hosted by Richard. He finds Richard and introduces himself. Surprisingly, Richard knows who he is and already knows about Simon's death. Richard takes him to a private area and offers a cigar. Frank refuses, but he sees that he has the same matchbook found in Simon's car and asks Richard about it. He tells him that it's from one of his private clubs he owns for the elites of the city. Frank thanks him for his time and leaves, struggling to find the exit.
Frank receives a brand new electric vehicle from Richard, delivered to the station. He gets a rundown from the technician and causes a few accidents before understanding the controls. Later that day, Frank attends an interrogation of one of the bank robbers and questions him. The robber denies his involvement until Frank shows him video evidence. The robber gives up and explains that they were not there for money, but a safety deposit box. Ed looks up the safety deposit box's owner, and they realize that it belonged to Simon, proving that Simon's death was in fact a murder. Richard holds a meeting with the city elites. He informs them of his plan for the near future. He decides to save humanity by using the plot device to reset the world. The plot device will send a signal that triggers humans to behave like animals, taking each other out, while the rich and powerful hide in bunkers. Once the chaos is finished, they will come out and redevelop the world to their image. The members applaud him, and he tells them to be prepared. Frank heads over to the private club owned by Richard. He questions the bartender for information on Simon. After smashing his head on the table, the bartender informs Frank that Simon sat in the back corner and that the room in the back has all the security tapes. Simon sees Beth and warns her about the dangers of being there with him. Before he can get Beth out of there, Richard walks over and is instantly distracted by Beth. Richard invites Beth over to a private table while Frank uses his time to sneak into the back room. He sneaks in quietly but falls down a flight of stairs, alerting the guards. After taking them out, he quickly checks the cameras for footage on Simon. He sees Richard talking to him as well as a journalist that was eavesdropping on their conversation. More guards are on their way, so Frank leaves through the back, setting off the alarm. Richard senses something's wrong and has his henchmen keep an eye on him. Chief Davis receives a call in the middle of the night from Richard about his intrusive investigation. When she hangs up, Frank is in front of her pleading his case. He tells her what he knows about Richard, but she doesn't believe him and kicks him out. Frank heads back to his apartment and finds Beth waiting for him outside and invites her in. Richard's henchman is on a rooftop spying on Frank and Beth. Frank closes the blinds and the henchman switches to a thermal binocular. He sees Frank and Beth doing questionable things, but in reality they're just cooking in odd angles. Frank and Beth get romantic and decide to take their relationship to the next level. They take a couple of days and head to a remote cabin and spend a romantic vacation. Frank returns from his vacation and heads to meet the journalist who was at the club. He enters his apartment and steps on a pool of blood. Still not understanding the situation, he reads a note telling him to pick up a bloody knife
and follows another note telling him to say his name and "I did it" into a recorder. He heads to the master bedroom and sees a journalist lying dead on the floor. He finally understands that he's being framed and tries to hide the body. He accidentally gets the body's head chopped off, and the police arrive and try to arrest him. He jumps out the window and escapes with his car. While driving away, Richard hacks into his car and confesses that he is responsible for Simon's death. Richard programs his car to drive off into the ocean just like he did to Simon. Frank tries to break out of the car, even shooting down the windshield. He presses random buttons and eventually resets the system and opens the door before the car heads into the ocean. Frank calls Ed to warn him, and Ed informs him that the mayor shut them down because of Frank's mess up and that they're on their own. Frank heads to Beth to patch himself up. She helps take care of his wounds and also tells him a secret she's been holding. Simon had called her before he was murdered and told her what the device does. Frank feels betrayed that she didn't tell him earlier and storms out when he receives a call from Ed. Ed tells Frank that he located Richard's henchman who was in charge of delivering the plot device to Richard from the bank. They kidnap him and he wakes up in the hospital. Frank tells him that he's been asleep for a couple days and that they captured Richard and prevented his plan from working. Frank also tells him that Richard is blaming him for being the mastermind and that if he doesn't tell Frank the truth, then he will go to jail instead of Richard. He confesses and tells Frank everything. He reveals that Richard was supposed to turn on the device on New Year's Eve at the WWFC boxing match. Frank walks away and reveals that the hospital was staged and that he was lying about Richard. With 48 minutes left before midnight, Frank and Ed head to the Ponzi scheme arena where the boxing match is being held. Ed gives Frank special earbuds that'll protect them from the device. Frank heads up to where the New Year's Eve balls will drop, and Ed disguises himself as a concession stand staff. While Frank and Ed get set up, Beth enters Richard's private suite as his guest. She pulls out a gun and pulls a trigger, but Richard reveals he knows who she is and removed all of her bullets earlier. He disarms her of all her weapons and traps her. Frank reaches the balls and locates the device. He can't reach it and accidentally kicks a lever, turning on the balls and lowering it down. His pants get caught by the chains and are removed, revealing everything to the crowd. He successfully grabs the device and removes it. When he leaves the balls, he steals the microphone from Bruce Buffer and tries to evacuate the building, but everybody just laughs at him, thinking he's crazy. Bruce throws a punch at Frank, but he knocks him out. He sees security on the way and escapes with his car.
Richard leaves to get his device back with Beth. He finds Frank and demands the device back. Frank threatens him by shooting the device so it'll never go off, but Richard turns it on manually by pressing a button. Frank hears a commotion from the arena, and fans pour in violently, knocking the device out of his hands. Richard picks it up and escapes on his motorcycle. A group of enraged citizens charge towards Frank. Knowing the citizens are under mind control, he pulls out his guns and skillfully kicks the magazines into them, knocking them out easily. He clears the remaining citizens by landing blow after blow on their crotches. An owl lands near him and offers him a ride. Frank chases Richard down, and the owl covers Richard's helmet with feces, blinding him, forcing him to crash into a fountain. Richard gets back up and confronts Frank. Frank easily takes him down with one punch to the gut. Before Frank can arrest him, Richard's arms transform into thrusters and he flies straight up, but he hits his head on a lap post and crashes back down. Beth arrives and is about to shoot him until Frank talks her out of it. She takes back the device and turns it off, calming everybody down. The citizens begin hugging each other while Frank and Beth watch as Richard is arrested and taken away.